welcome everyone to the next edition of Hire Talent Substack. We're really honored to have both of you today. I think this can be a really interesting conversation. So tell us about your journey and your current role and how you got there.
Yeah, so my current role, I feel like I fell into talent acquisition itself years and years ago, but that morphed into leading talent acquisition teams, and then it morphed into at a smaller company managing a lot of different vendors that were either talent acquisition vendors or TA adjacent, so within HR as well. So I've managed relocation vendors, law firms doing immigration, outplacement vendors, and then the stuff that actually makes sense for talent acquisition, like job boards and ATSs. And the role at Danaher, is one literally popped up in LinkedIn. When I was starting to think about wanting a new job, and I don't know if it was AI reading my mind. That was 4 years ago, so maybe it was there, maybe it wasn't. But it was just a perfect role, and I had to explore it.
Yeah.
And so that's what's kind of led me here. But 20 years of talent acquisition experience. Both doing recruiting at a desk and then managing people along the way.
Yeah, amazing. I love the journey. And you and I have worked together in many companies and we've been friends for a long time. So I love this changes that you're putting through in your career. Michael?
Yeah, well, started off my career as a recruiter. Didn't know exactly what I was going to do out of college, and recruiting was the sort of opportunity to learn more about what other people did and figure out if it was something that I'd be interested in. And moved into account management. And then I was thinking maybe I can get out of the staffing industry and more into a technology implementation role. Well, that ended up still being a more recruiting, another staffing platform, and was with that organization for a bit. And I was like, well, we finished this implementation, and then I had an opportunity to step into the enterprise buyer side and run a program for Thomson Reuters. And so then I switched into a program lead for North America with Thomson Reuters for several years, and most recently was at Xcel Energy, managing a contingent labor program there on the sourcing side. And again, I was thinking maybe eventually I'll kind of get out of the staffing industry world. I had started a few years back really getting passionate about AI, building different types of tools and process automation with AI. And over the past year, really was trying to change my trajectory into more of an AI-focused role at Xcel Energy, and in parallel had an opportunity to join an AI venture studio, which is Blue Folders that I'm at now currently, and yet still not quite able to escape the staffing world. We're building a recruiting platform for the U.S. Marines. So it's all, the through line everywhere is staffing. I guess it's where I'll be, but at least now there's a heavy emphasis on AI and get to learn every day, so it's pretty exciting, and looking forward to see where the next chapter takes me.
It's amazing. You just started this, right?
Yeah, just September 1.
Wow. So it's been just
a week.
A few days. Right?
It's been a week, but he already knows a lot of what he's going to do.
It's your 1 week anniversary.
That's right. It's my 1 week anniversary.
Congratulations. Well, that sounds really exciting. And I know you and I talked about that in April. You were building on these tools, which I'm excited to see as well. It is definitely a big changing landscape currently. How do you view the next year on what's going to happen with CW and SLW?
I think we're going to keep seeing more and more recognition of the importance of the contingent workforce, right? So I think if companies start looking more at their total talent strategies, it's a piece that has to come in. But having worked for manufacturing companies, you just can't get your product out the door unless you have the contingent workers, right? Nobody staffs. At least I've never met a company that staffs full-time in their production environment with workers, right? There's always contingent workers, but then the importance of being scalable and all the rest of the parts of your business too. So I think we're going to see more and more, of that becoming relevant. And I think that's important, right? I think it becomes more visible at every company too, right? Once they get VMSs in place, once you start educating and looking under rocks, right? 'Cause you start finding all those other pockets of where contingent workers of every type, right? Whether it's staff aug, whether it's freelancers, true consulting, are critical to getting business done.
Yeah, and I think people they always talk about AI, but I think they forget that with AI, there's a boom for manufacturing, there's a boom for energy, right? There's a boom for data center construction. We're actually doing a lot of AI data center build outs for clients with project managers, and we're buying hard hats for people and putting higher talent on them because our clients are requiring them. And so I think that has to all be done through CW. And there's not enough focus on the fact that we are actually having a lot of growth in CW in certain segments.
Yeah.
Where do you see, Michael? Where do you see the growth happening for the next year?
Yeah, I mean, I really agree. The data suggests it as well. We're at CWS, SIA releases their buyer surveys, and we see that the forecast is a heavier population, heavier ratio proportion of contingent workforce. Speaking just from empirical observation at Xcel Energy, even in the few short years I was there, we increased from about 40% to 50% of the workforce at Xcel Energy is external workforce, 13,000 workers. And so you wouldn't think that the energy industry might be leading the pack when it comes to an adoption curve of anything generally. But in the contingent arena, I absolutely agree, especially with AI, the uncertainty, the unknowns, right? We don't know what we don't know about it. What we do know about all companies is they need to be flexible, they need to adapt, and contingent workforce offers really the best solution to that. And whether it's freelancers or traditional staff aug or consulting roles, it very clear to me it will always be a part, I believe, of the strategy to the extent that a company wants to be in growth mode, which I think most of them do. So I agree. Yeah.
And Michael, to follow up with that, when you were on the buyer side, how did you want your vendors to leverage AI? Were you worried about the way they used it?
I would say there were some initial concerns I had about bias and how they were specifically using it to, in my mind, make the candidate experience feel a little bit more sterile and less human. And what I feel like the way my mind has changed on this is that it should allow us to connect more as humans. Now, what I hope is that, social media as an example, which was intended to connect so many people, ended up creating a lot of disconnection and a lot of negative byproducts that I believe were not anticipated. And I hope that's not the case with AI. I like to look at what the good potential is with AI, and I do think it can free up a lot of time for a recruiter to spend more time building relationships with candidates, and free up account managers and suppliers to be spending more time building relationships and with their clients and understanding problems better to help connect this population or these disparate populations in a way that we've never seen before. So I think some of the original use cases might have been a little bit misguided, but I think there are also, on the flip side, many really strong, powerful use cases of AI that, like I said, allow us to compound our potential. And I'm really excited to see where it takes us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I love those thoughts around that. What are your thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, so I think as far as looking at it within the supplier area, I'm hoping they use it responsibly, right? I mean, and I'm hoping, and I hear from so many staffing firms that that's one of their leads is, hey, we're a fully AI-enabled staffing firm. I'm like, okay, what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
And they usually can't explain that, right? Because it's just a BD person trying to generate leads. But, what's your validation behind it? How do I know that you are making sure that you're picking the right people? Because are you as an employer, as a staffing firm, going to get in jeopardy because you have hiring biases or some adverse impact to workers? So I mean, I think there's the use it responsibly, make sure it's validated. But I love what you just said is it's also making it a better experience for the candidates, because if people feel like they're getting screened by a bot, they're getting their answers from a bot when they have questions from their employer, that's not a great experience, right? And they're going to leave that staffing firm and go someplace else, which puts us in jeopardy of people not finishing assignments, right? So I mean, I think it's making sure it's used right, but you're spot on. I mean, you can gain so many productivity gains. You can free yourself up to have much more in the present moment conversations with candidates. And you can, get the tactical work off your plate and do more consultative work, right? And so I think as long as everybody's looking to use it for the right purpose and not just cutting out their recruiters, cutting out their expenses, but actually increasing the candidate experience, maybe increasing the client experience as well through the use of AI.
Yeah.
My perspective, and I agree with both of you guys, is the experience that you both talked about is really important. What I'm seeing, even from my standpoint, we use it up to the sourcing piece, up to before we have the first conversation. At that point, it becomes a human touch. And one of the reasons I did that was, well, one, I'm getting 1,000 calls a day now from AI agents, and it's just getting me desensitized. Just like when Google Ads, you stopped looking at. Remember when they first came, you'd notice them, and now you don't even see them on the screen, even though they're in front of you. and then number two is the spam and the fraud that's happening as well. So I think there's a happy balance in between making sure it's a good experience, but then not getting to the point where we're all desensitized from using anything around it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so by extension, it's like that's where what I was referring to earlier. It's like depending on where AI is inserted into the sourcing life cycle,
Yeah.
really changes what I believe the perception is as a buyer,
Yeah.
and where are the areas that I'm really interested to see how it evolves, and I anticipate that it will. But my number one use case for AI is as a didactic tool, right? How can I learn
Yeah.
more quickly? And so I think about that as a candidate. I'm coming into a role, unfamiliar company, new culture, maybe it's a new industry or domain. Now I have expertise and experience, but I believe a supplier can really help bridge the gap between, from a knowledge perspective of, from the -1 week, right? Like a couple weeks before the job is starting, love to see suppliers step up and start to deliver AI-based training
Yeah.
that helps equip those workers to be more successful on day one.
Yeah.
And then, even in the course of an engagement, be able to, continually upskill and empower those workers to add more value to the client and, by extension, help with
Yeah.
cost savings, not in the traditional sense of like, hey, we're reducing rates or we're reducing workforce, but we're just becoming more productive. And suppliers are empowering the workforce that they're providing to operate at a higher level. And
Yeah.
so really keen to see how, we kind of
Shift.
change the focus from the sourcing and screening and interviewing and, taking the human out of some of those things,
Yeah.
which to your point, I think is really important to be considerate of.
Yeah.
And then finding ways that, again, put the human touch back into it, and then,
Increase
make it a
productivity.
value add, not only to the candidate and
Yeah.
the recruiter, but also to the end client.
No, absolutely. And how do you want to see the next year shape out? What are you excited about?
So I think we're going to keep hearing about AI a lot, right?
Yeah.
We're already talking about AI a lot here too, right? And I think it's, I think I'm hoping, right, we see a little more stability in the market. That leads to growth, right?
Yeah.
Both growth in the economy, growth in our companies, growth in our industry. Because so many of the people I talk to right now, are hearing the same answer from their clients, right? Is that, yeah, things are slow. We don't know when it's picking back up. I don't want to see another pandemic, right? Being in life sciences and diagnostics, that certainly put us on a big growth curve.
Yeah.
Don't want it to be that way, but I want to see the economy come back around. And I think, and from what we heard from the economists this morning, hopefully the tariffs are on the table. Everybody should now be able to figure out, okay, what's my business plan? This is what's going to cost me to operate. Let's get back to normal business and
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah, we've definitely been in a staffing recession for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's self-made from economic policies and things like that.
Yeah. Do you think it's a leading indicator or a lagging indicator?
Good question. I think it's a leading indicator. What are your thoughts?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not really. And I think the psychology of AI is more, or the psychology that I believe is influencing a lot of people's decision. It's fear and uncertainty and doubt that are creating that slowdown.
Yeah.
And I do think maybe, I'm not sure if it's one or the other, because there's so many different factors right now globally that are impacting our markets. So it's hard to say if it is a leading or lagging indicator, because it's like, well, we've had part of the world that's been focused on war, and part of the world that's focused on tariffs and energy and all these other things that are tangentially related but have such a large influence on all of our domestic companies. And I really think more jobs are going to be created in these next few years than we anticipate. And I think there is maybe some amount of I don't know if you can call it a recession, if that's too strong of a word, right? But that slowdown that we saw in the staffing market, I don't think it's necessarily preceding something that's more broad in the market as much as potentially just a reflection of the general lack of knowledge and comfort and confidence with how AI can be implemented in a way that's positive instead of negative, because we see the negative sides of it a lot right now in this industry with the fraudulent candidates, and the decreasing value of a resume since many of them are AI generated.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also a part of it where, right now we're seeing more of the negative than the positive in many cases. You see these studies that come out saying, 95% of enterprise pilots for
Fails.
AI
Yeah.
have failed. Well, maybe that's a big portion of why there's been a slowdown, because these companies have been piloting AI, believing that it was going to create some sort of efficiency and capacity increase that they weren't able to realize. And
Yeah.
guess what? Now we have to hire some more people
That's true.
to change or address those, failed pilots maybe.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
It's why I call American intelligence, I call AI American intelligence with a tech stack on top of it. It's not going to work without the human part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you both for joining us.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks.